You are Locked On Astros Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, that was about as crazy as you are going to get from your Houston Astros. Hi, guys. Michael Connor here with you tonight for the Locked On Astros Postcast, Locked On Sports Network. Thank you for joining me. This is number 4 that we've done now. I think we're 2 and 2. We've done every game. I think that's right. We're 1 and whatever it might be. We're here for the Locked On Astros Postcast as the Astros bats bail out the Astros pitching staff on a night where they absolutely needed it, because if you missed the news before the game, Framber Valdez scratched elbow discomfort back in Houston. We'll discuss what that means for the Astros, level of concern for him, and where this thing is going. Hopefully nothing too serious for Framber moving forward. We'll get to that later in the postcast. But today's episode of this Locked On Astros postcast is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/MLB and use code all lowercase Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. So Henley comes up from the minor leagues today, and you're saying, who's this Henley character that's pitching for the Houston Astros? Well, he was a 7th round pick, a few years ago for the Astros out of the University of Texas. And it's Andrew Heaney, of course. That's not Andrew Heaney. That's the starter. Henley. I'm looking at the wrong part of the box score. Blair Henley. I'm sorry to Blair. But that's how forgettable his night was. Comes out, and, it was a little bit questionable what the Astros were doing with that roster spot, not going ahead and putting Framber Valdez on the injured list and bringing up somebody instead of DFAing a guy that they just picked up, which was weird. But they bring him up in a spot start. It was his turn in the rotation for the Space Cowboys, even though they weren't playing today. It was a universal day off in minor league baseball, and thrown into just an incredibly tricky situation. Now, look, this guy has never had a lot of success. Has not pitched a ton in the minor leagues. I think it's the equivalent of like one full big league season, basically, if he was starting every game or starting every time through a rotation. But this guy has not had a ton of success at the minor league level. I didn't have any expectation of it going very well. I didn't foresee it going no outs and giving up 5 runs, only getting 1 out in the ball game before the Astros have to go to the bullpen. We'll get to our MVPs of the night in a few moments, and that's where we'll really get to what the guys in the bullpen did. But it was a tough spot for the Astros, and on a night that they needed it more than ever, which is their bats stepping up. We've talked a lot so far on these postcasts about guys that have not stepped up to this part of the season when it comes to, production at the plate. Yordan, outside of a couple of games, so 3 games before tonight, had been not very good in those games. Well, he does Yordan things tonight. I am calling BS on that number that StatCast gave. I don't know how StatCast calculates it. That felt like that thing was 550 plus that Yordan hit. I mean, as soon as he hit it, and seeing that shot, of Adolis Garcia, not even moving to give that ball the courtesy look, was absolutely fantastic. I enjoyed that so much, and I know all you guys did as well. He's a monster. At some point, maybe he's going to get lucky enough. He was a triple away from the cycle early in the game. At some point, maybe he gets lucky enough to hit one into a gap somewhere or hits it off the wall where it, takes a funny bounce and finds his way to a triple so he can have a cycle at some point in his career before he gets too old to run the bases like that. But the man is just a machine. And if there is something to walk away with from this series is that maybe Yordan's starting to get it right. They're going to go play the Royals after this series, and it's a Kansas City team that's way better than anybody expected them to be at this very moment now. Are they a Kansas City team that's actually that good, or are they a Kansas City team that is, playing a bad White Sox team in their 4-game series that they're coming off of where they swept them, and that's inflated their number? I'm going to go with that. But they're going to be pesky. You know that. They've got some young guys on that team. They're absolutely going to be pesky in that series. But you walk away from this series with the number one thing being that Yordan has started to pick it up. And if Yordan is picking it up the way that he has played in these last few baseball games, this team is lethal. And it makes the lineup even better because Yordan will see fewer pitches at times. Other guys will get more pitches. Looking at the lineup tonight, a guy I talked about last night in the postcast, Alex Bregman tonight, 3-hit night for him. Stand up and take a bow. Now, nothing was over the fence. He did have a double, but I will take that kind of production out of Alex Bregman tonight without a doubt. They had big swings across the lineup, and no swing was bigger than the Yordan swing, and then again the swing from Victor Caratini. The Astros' greatest free agent signing ever, as I put it on Twitter earlier. Yes, or X, excuse me. Greatest free agent signing ever. Sorry to anybody else. You know who's not the greatest free agent signing ever? Jose Abreu. But we're not doing that tonight. Tonight is a night of positivity. Why not be positive when the Astros were able to salvage a split of this 4-game series? Now, I, admittedly, on Friday said they need to win the next 3 games, or Thursday night, said they need to win the next 3 games of this series, and they didn't do that. But that's okay. We can all live as Houstonians with a split of this series. You're going to see this team again next weekend at Minute Maid Park. Maybe, hopefully, the Astros will show up and decide to play good baseball in their home ballpark and not be, a bunch of slappies there and lose to the Rangers again in their own place. But if that doesn't happen, we'll get mad about it then. For now, you can be pleased that this team figured it out over the last 2 games, and they've set themselves up for that Kansas City series in a big way. But to Victor Caratini, before we take our brief little pause here in just a moment, Victor Caratini is a underrated signing, even if it's this slow into the season. Think about all the catchers the Astros have had through the years. And I'm not talking about the everyday catcher. I'm talking about the backup catchers. They have had a bunch of terrible backup catchers in terms of hitting. Caratini can swing the bat a little bit, and you saw it again tonight. Like, how he didn't land a job somewhere where he could play every day blows my mind a little bit. He had a really solid season for the Brewers last year. And the Astros gave him a 2-year deal. He got what he was probably looking for, a little bit of security for a couple of years, got a decent little amount of money on him. And when he's been given the opportunity, very few times now, I think it's game 3 or 4 that he's played in this season, he's produced. And that was a huge, huge swing to put that game, with a big, big amount of breathing room there to make it a 10-5 baseball game. And the Astros then coast from there because tonight the bullpen actually stepped up and did what they're supposed to do. The bullpen's had their struggles this season, but they get it done tonight. The entire team gets it done. And just a little bit, you can enjoy the Rangers fans probably being in disbelief that they went out there on a night where they put up 5 runs before a single out was recorded in the baseball game, and they lost. Sucks. Hate to see it for you guys. It's terrible. It would be nice, though, if the Astros record matched what the Rangers have at this point. I will say that the Astros, with that win, getting closer to the 500 mark. Oh, baby, watch out. They could do it this week in Kansas City. Maybe they're 4-7. Texas goes to 6-4 on the season. The win today. You know what? And one more thing on Yordan. Props to him because Blair Henley, I keep wanting to call him Heaney because he faced Heaney. It's confusing. Henley and Heaney. Blair Henley was set up to be a brutal loss for his big league debut. It wasn't bad enough that he gave up 5 runs and walked 3, didn't strike out anybody, and hit a batter. He was going to be the loser, but Yordan did not allow that to happen. Props to you, Yordan. Seth Martinez gets the win, and we're going to talk about Seth Martinez and others in just a few moments. Thank you to all of you that are joining us right now live on YouTube. Locked On Houston Sports is where we are. Locked On Sports Houston, is where we are at there on YouTube. If you're listening to this in this podcast form, which you can find anywhere that you get podcast, it is on the Locked On Astros page. That's another great daily podcast. They have information coming out all the time. They had a reaction earlier to the Astros' unfortunate news of Framber Valdez, which I'll get to later on before we say goodbye. Check out their podcast, and, of course, listen to this one wherever you get your podcast, the Locked On Sports Houston, our Astros, Locked On Astros postcast every single night, except for the day game this week. We will not have one for the day game against the Royals on Thursday. I shouldn't say we won't have one for sure. We will see. It's up in the air if I'll be able to make it happen. But if I can, I will do it for the day game, and then we'll be with you all weekend when the Astros play the Rangers again. Which, again, great scheduling, Major League Baseball. 13 times in a year. 7 times in the first 3 weeks of the season, or 2.5 weeks of the season, whatever it is. Stupid. Does not make any sense. We'll get to the bullpen and the MVPs of the night in just a moment. Right now, I want to tell you about PrizePicks. And if you played PrizePicks to this point, well, if you haven't, what are you waiting for? It makes watching games a lot more fun. You put a little bit on this guy hitting his over. Maybe you feel somebody hitting the under on whatever their number is. All the sports are available to you with that PrizePicks entry. It makes games a lot more exciting. And as I mentioned, they've got stuff all over the board, whether it's baseball and basketball, to the League of Legends and everything in between. You can pick LeBron, Shohei Ohtani, Connor McDavid, Jude Bellingham, all on the same entry. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in more than 30 states across the country, including California, our great state of Texas, and Georgia. Want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like Meek Mill and Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, you can find them now in Community Plays under the Promos tab on the app to view entries from some of your favorite biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match of $100. Again, download that app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100 with PrizePicks. Locked On Astros Postcast here on YouTube, and again on the audio version of it over on, well, really anywhere that you get your podcast, the Locked On Astros page. Thank you to all of you joining us tonight as the Astros crush the Rangers 10-5, split the series against them. They head off to Kansas City to take on the Royals for a few before heading back home next weekend to face those Rangers. Again, Yordan Alvarez, the man of the night again at the plate. He and Victor Caratini overall with the biggest nights at the plate. Both of those guys sending some shots over the fence. Yordan's, on the day of the eclipse, I think Yordan's probably actually blew up the moon. We did not see the eclipse here, at least I didn't where I am. I don't know if you guys saw it today, but Yordan definitely saw it. The baseball seeing it right now with what Yordan did to it today with that absolute moonshot. MVPs of the baseball game tonight. Now, I'm thinking about things that we can kind of mix in on a nightly or semi-nightly basis with this Locked On Astros postcast. And I think this is something that kind of fits tonight. It is a very simple thing to give out MVPs of the game. But Seth Martinez tonight, stand up and take a bow, sir. Now, this guy has been up and down in the big leagues the last couple of years. He's had some moments where he was really good, had some moments where he struggled. But tonight, stepped up when the Astros needed him the most. Now, what the Astros do with this bullpen and this pitching staff over the next few days is going to be very interesting because they asked a lot out of 3 relievers. I think about Brandon, well, we'll get to him in a second. But Seth Martinez tonight is probably not going to be available for like 3-4 days at least. 3 2/3, gave up just 1 hit, no runs, of course, and struck out 2. And he gave you 32 pitches out of the bullpen for a middle reliever who typically gets his 3 outs, and that's it. It's probably throwing at max 20 pitches in an inning that goes not exactly how he wants it to. But this is a guy that's always had stuff. We've known that. That slider's always been a filthy kind of wipeout pitch for him. And tonight, I think he's exactly what Joe Ibotta talked about it before the game tonight about Henley and how he thought he matched up well with him because of his sweeper and everything. Seth Martinez has those things, and I think executed them very well, clearly, to get all the outs that he needed to get in this baseball game for the Astros to get the win. We'll stick in the bullpen for our next MVP of the game, Taylor Scott, the next guy. It was a rough start a little bit for him to his Astros career. He's really settled in, and a credit to him. The Astros bullpen entering tonight, 28th in Major League Baseball in ERA. Now, look, I know ERA is not everything when it comes to relievers, ERAs, not everything when it comes to evaluating pitchers. But look, early in the season, it tells a story, even if it's an inflated number that's impossible to reach or something that's not going to sustain itself all season long. It tells a story technically of how bad you've been. And the Astros bullpen had been horrendous to this point of the season. And this guy early in the year was one of those guys, but Taylor Scott tonight does a great job. After Seth Martinez gives you 2 innings of shutout baseball, 2 strikeouts, a walk, and just 1 hit allowed, and then he throws 32 pitches as well. So those 2 guys, a lot of pitches in their outings. You have to wonder when they'll be available. And this guy's definitely going to be down for a little bit because he led off the series, did Brandon Bielak, by throwing, it was like 64 pitches, I believe was the final number, out of the pen in the first game of this series. And tonight, he bounces back after that on Thursday. It's Monday night, so he had just Saturday and Sunday to rest up and comes out of the pen tonight and gives you 2 scoreless there with a strikeout, no walks, and did allow 1 hit as well. And then threw for Bielak. He threw a total of 23 pitches. So those 3 guys, I mean, they're the tri-MVPs of the pitching staff tonight because somebody needed to get through it, and that's exactly what they got out of them in this baseball game, and it's huge. The Astros bullpen is a problem overall based on the numbers. Now, you're always going to go to the back of the baseball card, like we always say, and you expect Josh Hader, even though he hasn't pitched like a $95 million closer yet, to pitch like a $95 million closer. You expect Ryan Presley to pitch like an elite-level closer that he's been. You expect Brian Abreu to have more nights like he had tonight and be fantastic. Those guys be lights out, but it's the rest of those guys that you have to figure out and find a way to taking the next step, being trustworthy, whatever it might be, and you're seeing that to an extent for some of them, whether it's Martinez tonight, Bielak. Of course, Bielak's been really solid for 2 years. He just does not get enough love for a guy that has nothing that's overly impressive in terms of his stuff. His curveball's pretty good when it's on. He's just been really solid. He was really solid for them last year when he made starts and a couple of appearances out of the pen. But so far this year, he's been really, really solid as well. And then, of course, Taylor Scott as well. All 3 of those guys were fantastic in this one. The other guys that get the MVP nods of the night, of course, you have to give it to the guys we talked about in the first segment. I'm giving it to all the guys that had multi-hit nights. Now, one of these guys drove in, 2 of these guys drove in 3 runs, that being Yordan and Victor Caratini. The other guy drove in just 1, that being Alex Bregman, but he had a 3-hit night. Yordan had a 3-hit night. Caratini had a 2-hit night. So those guys totaling, what was that? Let me do my math on the run. 3 and 6. 8 of the Astros' 11 hits in the baseball game go to those guys tonight. Fantastic stuff. So they get the first edition awards that we have given out on the Locked On Astros Postcast of MVPs of the night. So congrats to Yordan Alvarez, Alex Bregman, Victor Caratini for doing what they did. Could give a couple to Tucker because he drove in, or could give one to Tucker too because he drove in a couple. You know what? Everybody's the MVP tonight, and you guys are the MVP, of course, for watching the show live on YouTube after it happens. Then again on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, the Locked On Astros page. So go ahead, give that a listen tomorrow, and give those guys a listen as well, as they'll have new content up for you tomorrow as well. We have a lot more to get into in the final few moments of this show. Those coming up in just a second, because we have to talk about, absolutely have to talk about Framber Valdez. The unfortunate news of the day is that Framber, the reason why the Astros are put in that spot with the pitching tonight is because Framber was out, scratch ahead of the game, back in Houston being evaluated with the elbow issue. We'll discuss it in just a moment. Right now, I want to tell you about Game Time. Have you ever had a frustrating experience trying to get tickets to a game or an event or whatever? Maybe you're like me. You like to sit around and wait till the last minute because you're hoping to score good deals. Well, I have the absolute perfect app for you. I've used it for these last-second events before. A couple of football games this past season we used it for, and that is the Game Time app. They have so many great features on this app, like those last-minute tickets that I love, flash deals, zone deals. easy way to find and buy MLB tickets, and for every kind of event in your area. Views from all seats in the venue as well. Lowest price ticket guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. They have it all for you there with the Game Time app. I mean it. Go and check out this app because it is absolutely fantastic. It is going to be a game changer when it comes for you, when it comes to getting tickets to the next game, the next event, or whatever it is. Go to gametime.co. That's gametime.co to check it out right now. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. For a limited time, all users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with code FIRSTPITCH. Terms apply. That's code FIRSTPITCH, FIRSTPITCH, for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, we'll start to wind down with the Locked On Astros podcast. Thank you again to all of you joining us tonight on YouTube. And if you're looking for it tomorrow, if you missed any of it, head over to the Locked On Astros podcast page, wherever you get your podcast, to listen to it in its entirety. For me, I check it out on Spotify. It'll be up there shortly within 10, 15 minutes of us being done with this show tonight. We'll be back again tomorrow, and the Astros are off in Kansas City taking on the Red Hot Royals, 6-4 Royals. That one's a 6:40 first pitch tomorrow night. Christian Javier will throw for the Astros against Cole Reagans for the Royals in that one. I'm going to go ahead and call my shot right now. We're talking about a win again tomorrow night. But let's talk about Framber Valdez. The unfortunate news of the day heading into this one kind of came out of nowhere, middle of the afternoon. The Astros saying that Framber's been scratched from the game tonight. Not a lot of explanation to it. Joe Ibotta was going to address it with the media before the baseball game. Does so, and it is a elbow issue for Framber Valdez. Back in Houston, being evaluated by doctors. Look, Dana Brown and Joe Ibotta downplayed it. They said it's not as big of a deal. I mean, look, maybe I should take some comfort in the fact that they did not put him on the injured list today, but it's still a massive concern. You hear elbow with any player, any pitcher, and you have to freak out. We all know the words that linger, Tommy John. Now, we're not putting that on him yet unless he's going to go and get a bunch of MRIs or something, and then he's going to be, or he gets put on the injured list tomorrow or something. Then you start to get concerned. I mean, we're seeing this, and it's been talked about a little bit. We're seeing it across the sport. Big-name pitchers are going down left and right with issues. And this would be about as bad of a blow for the Astros as they could have, because there is nobody on this team that's a bigger workhorse for them than Framber Valdez. And, you know, I think it's something that gets lost on people when they think about how a Major League Baseball season has to go for teams to be successful for an entire season. And one of the biggest things that you have to do is eat innings out of your starting staff. And it's a bonus when you can eat innings with a guy who's basically elite and has been a Cy Young candidate in recent years. Now, look, I know the end of last season didn't go as well for Framber Valdez, but he still has that kind of stuff. The year before, he was fifth in the Cy Young voting in the American League. He is capable of reeling off a year and winning a Cy Young. He has that kind of stuff. But more than anything for this team, he is the workhorse. He's the only 200-inning guy on this staff. Christian Javier, unless he turns into that guy this year, I don't think he will. I'm not going to count on it. We already know that Justin Verlander is getting started later this season. He's going to throw a bullpen, by the way, tomorrow, and then make one more rehab start, which has not been determined which team he will go to before coming back to the staff. But they don't have, I mean, Hunter Brown. How many innings has Hunter Brown given you this year? 150? 160? They have guys that'll come back and help ease the workload. Is JP France a 200-inning guy? No, probably not. Probably not even close. Probably 150 to 175 at max. 200 innings is becoming harder and harder to get for guys for whatever reason it might be. You know, they all throw 100 miles an hour. It's maximum effort all the time, and it matters. But losing Fromber from that standpoint, and then from the standpoint of if he's right, he is their best pitcher, it would be a terrible, terrible blow. And look, I, like everybody else, think I had a hard time with it today. I've said this before. This isn't anything new. I thought it was a mistake not to go ahead and just blow it out of the water and give Blake Snell even more money, to give him what the Giants ended up giving him, so he would come to the Houston Astros and you have even more protection to your rotation. And look, I know that if you did that, you'd pay a ton in luxury tax compared to what you're already paying. And you would also be, you'd be so far above it that you'd have to give up for a draft pick with it as well. And you're already giving up a draft pick because you signed Josh Hader. But I think that would have been something that you should have done. And that would have given you the protection in this spot. And I say that because, and it goes both ways. You'd be depleting your farm system by doing it by taking away draft picks, which Dana Brown was brought here, and we heard about it over and over again. We've brought Dana Brown here because we want him to fix the farm system. The farm system needs fixing because it is god-awful. But what happens when somebody else gets hurt? Because unfortunately, we all know this. There will be another starter that goes down at some point. It's baseball. You don't go through a season. The only time that we've ever seen anything close to almost untouchable with a rotation was 2018. That team went with 5 starters through, I think it was like mid-August that year or late August before McCullers got hurt. Or maybe whatever it was in August. And they finally had to go to other guys. But typically, you're going to use anywhere between 10 and 12 guys to start baseball games for you in a regular season. That's what happens in this sport. And you already have this many games in, a blow to your ability to get through an entire season with the fewest amount of pitchers being used. What happens when somebody else goes down? Again, the good news is at some point, Luis Garcia's back. But even then, you have to ease him back in because he's coming off Tommy John, and there's going to be limitations. He's not going to be able to pitch long and pitch counts and whatnot. And if Lance McCullers does pitch at some point, he's going to have a ton of limitations as well because, look, that guy falls apart if there's a tough breeze outside of Minute Maid Park and he walks outside at the wrong time. You could also possibly have Jose Urquidy at some point, but you're going to ease him back in as well. So it's a delicate situation, and the Astros are in a very tricky one when it comes to these guys. And you need to hope for the best, first of all, because we all root for the Astros, but you need to hope for the best for Framber Valdez because of the ramifications that it could have for this baseball club getting through a regular season. Then you're putting more stress on a bullpen that not a single one of us at the moment trusts. And if it was normal going off of who they are as big leaguers, we would only trust the back end guys and not the other guys. So you need your workhorse healthy. Go do whatever you need to do. Sacrifice the live chicken. Speak to Joe Boo. Talk to whatever God it is that you talk to tonight and ask him to please protect Framber Valdez's left elbow. The Astros need him to be exactly what they want to be in 2024. Thank you for joining us tonight on this Locked On Astros postcast. Of course, right here live on YouTube. Find it on the Locked On Astros podcast page, wherever you get your podcast. Go ahead and give it a listen in its entirety. You want a refresher again tomorrow, it's right there for you when you get up to start your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow night after the Astros. They're going to pick up a win against the Kansas City Royals. I'm calling my shot. Talk to you then right here on the Locked On Astros postcast.